Hi, I'm Scott Noonan, the CEO of Audio Advice. Today I'm sitting in one of our labs with the coolest home theater processor in the world. If you have ever wanted to build the ultimate theater, today's video is about Trinnov home theater processors. I'll just start by saying that Trinnov processors are best in class. So if you're looking for an entry-level budget solution, you can stop now and check out our other videos on home theater receivers. For the rest of you, let's find out what makes Trinnov considered the ultimate home theater processor in the world. It's helpful to understand just a bit of history here. Trinnov started as a company devoted to research in immersive sound back in 2000, just as home theater was becoming popular and long before things like Dolby Atmos had been created. The key point here is that their culture is all about research. Since the very beginning, they have been more like a university research facility than a normal audio company. And unlike most home theater processor companies, Trinnov has never been about taking readily available off-the-shelf chips and assembling them into a piece of gear, but more about innovating to produce something that provides the most powerful and unique benefits possible. Even their name reflects this focus. It derives from try and innovation, hence Trinnov Innovation has always meant innovation in 3D sound. Now, before I get into the technology and capabilities, let me cover a couple of points. First, Trinnov processors are based on a software-based platform which enables them to provide upgrades over time as technology progresses. In fact, they've always offered free software updates to their customers as they've developed new 3D audio software. They're also different from other products in that the setup and calibration options and flexibility are far more comprehensive than anything else on the market. This allows the installer to address natural room challenges and offers an unmatched fine-tuning capability to optimize the system. After watching this video, if you decide you would like to consider a Trinnov for your system, I highly recommend contacting your local Trinnov dealer. If you're lucky enough to have one nearby, they'll be invaluable in helping you get the most from your investment. Trust me when I tell you the difference in performance between a properly calibrated Trinnov done by a real expert and one done by someone with just moderate experience can be night and day. Should you not have a dealer nearby, Audio Advice has done lots of systems with Trinnov processors, including some very high channel counts. Our premier theater in our Raleigh showroom has a Trinnov in it, and one of our testing labs, like you'll see I'm in right now, has a world-class 32-channel Trinnov system. Over time, we've learned many tricks that allow us to extract the very best performance from a Trinnov-based system. At Audio Advice, we're hardcore home theater fanatics. We've spent hundreds of hours testing different settings, configurations, and calibration methods to figure out what works best. We've installed Trinnov-based systems nationwide, all the way up to a world-class 32-channel, 18-seat killer theater, and are happy to work with you if you do not have a great local Trinnov dealer. Now, let's dive into what makes the Trinnov Altitude models so great. It all really begins with their software-based platform. Trinnov decided years ago that they didn't want to be at the mercy of mass production chip manufacturers to get the best sound. In fact, many people don't know this, but the implementation of immersive sound formats like Dolby Atmos or DTS:X Pro takes a few key steps. First, Dolby or DTS will develop their system and then send what is called the golden code out to chip manufacturers like Texas Instruments. The chip manufacturer, which only makes money when they sell a lot of these chips, then has to simplify that golden code so it can run on an inexpensive DSP chip that can be sold to every home theater receiver manufacturer. They have to make these chips work with all kinds of different price ranges and components. The home theater receiver and processor manufacturers then design their electronics around these decoding chips. And obviously, the higher end ones are putting better components all around them and so forth. However, Trinnov is entirely different than the other manufacturers in the space. Instead of using the same chip used by everyone else, their processors use a powerful Linux-based system like the ones used by companies like Dolby when they're creating things like Atmos. They then implement the actual golden code software completely unchanged into their Linux-based platform, which means the output is exactly what was intended with no watering down. But the really cool part about their platform is that upgrades are then a snap. If you owned an older Dolby receiver prior to Atmos, you likely had to sell it and purchase an entirely new Dolby Atmos receiver when Atmos emerged. Well, with Trinnov, when new formats come out, it is simply a free software upgrade. The upshot is that while Trinnov processors are generally more expensive, the investment pays off way longer than anything else on the market. So it all starts with their unique 3D microphone. You'll notice this looks totally different than microphones used with all other home theater processors. Almost all the others have one microphone up, which essentially allows them to figure out the distance to any particular speaker in the room. However, because this has multiple mics, it not only knows the distance, it knows the exact location of every single speaker in terms of angle, height, etc., which means it can do a full 3D map of the room and know where everything is. And we'll get to why that matters next. Well, let's say you used our free home theater design tool at audioadvice.com and designed a 7.4.4 system like you see here. But it turns out that you have a joist that is exactly where the front Atmos speakers should be. So while you're working with our design team, they build the final 3D rendering with the speakers moved slightly closer to the listening position to avoid the joist. For any other home theater processor, the assumption is that the speakers are in the correct location per our angle calculations, even though they're not. For Trinnov, the microphone actually maps exactly where the speakers are so it can adjust appropriately for the exact locations. Now that is super cool. There are a handful of pro tricks that top Trinnov dealers like Audio Advice use, like setting the optimal height and placement of the microphone during calibration that help you get the best out of it. If you're a hardcore DIY customer and love doing this stuff yourself, we will share those with you and support you through the entire process. So once the Trinnov system has a 3D map of your room, it can apply some really cool tech. The first is their patented remapping technology. I just love how this works. Remapping looks at where the director intended audio objects to be located and compares that to where your speakers are actually located in the room. It then uses 2 or 3 of the nearest speakers to make the audio object sound like it is coming from that exact intended location. You can actually see where these objects are supposed to be on the Trinnov interface. The small yellow balls are audio objects, and you can see how they fly around the room. By placing them exactly where they were intended in a 3-dimensional space, the surround effect is at a whole nother level than anything you've heard. I can tell you from personal experience that once you hear the improvement this makes in creating an immersive experience, you'll get why we love Trinnov so much. And what is even cooler is Dolby, DTS, and Aura 3D all want to see the speakers in a slightly different location. Of course, this is not physically possible in most situations, but with remapping, the Trinnov can place any sound where it belongs, regardless of the format. It is truly what we consider intelligent 3D immersive audio. Another major advantage of Trinnov is their speaker room optimizer. While almost all current home theater receivers and processors have some form of room correction, none of them can quite do what Trinnov can. Trinnov started researching 3-dimensional audio back in 2000. They discovered that the only way to get an accurate reproduction of 3-dimensional sound is when the sound coming from all of your speakers is perfectly matched both in the amplitude and time domain. This means the speakers in your system should not only sound the same, but also deliver all aspects of the sound at exactly the right time. In any home theater room, several factors are fighting against this. Even if you have identical speakers everywhere, their placement in your room greatly affects their sound. And should you not have all identical speakers, they will all behave somewhat differently. Now, various room correction systems try to get this right, but others don't have the amount of data and processing power to pull it off the way Trinnov does. As I mentioned before, Trinnov is the only system that knows exactly where each speaker is from a 3-dimensional standpoint. So Trinnov also has the processing power with the Linux platform to perform room optimization at a level simply not possible in other systems. The seamless immersive bubble you get once this is calibrated is incredible. Another advantage is how their speaker room optimizer blends your subwoofers with the other speakers. It's the best subwoofer blending we've ever heard. If you have a lot of subs in your room, you can even assign which speakers should be paired with the nearest subwoofer, and the optimizer will do the rest. Once you run the optimizer, it will set up your speaker to have as close to a perfectly flat frequency response as possible. However, the human ear prefers something different, with a slightly boosted bottom end and then some roll off in the extreme high end. This is where target curves come in. Using a graphical interface, you can set up the target curve you like and easily play around to hear the changes. Floyd Toole, when he was with Harman, did extensive research on what the human ear prefers, and the Harman target curve was developed. At Audio Advice, we typically use a modified version of this curve for most rooms, and the outcome is simply amazing. I've also never seen a processor that allowed for so much flexibility in different types of speakers. Some of you may have played around with active speakers using external crossovers and discovered that using an electronic crossover is a big advantage over the normal passive type. Well, the Trinnov system can handle up to 4-way active crossovers with complete control over slopes, frequency, and everything else. You also have an extremely flexible pre-EQ section if you want to fine-tune things in front of the optimizer. Another really neat aspect of the Trinnov is its wealth of presets. Some home theater receivers and processors give you, say, 1 setting for a system, while better or higher-end ones might give you 4. This can come in handy if you want 1 setting for pure stereo with just the left and right speakers playing for high-performance music and another for full surround for your movies. Well, imagine having 29 presets. Think about 1 for that particular streaming service that needs more lip sync delay, 1 for when you want to boost the dialogue in a show, or 1 with less bass for late night listening. So let's move on and talk a little bit about channel count. So many people think, oh, if I've got a 5.1 system or maybe a 7.1.2 system, I've got all these speakers. The reality is, if you can get more speakers into your system, you can fill a lot of gaps and make it way better. So as an example, we're in a large 3-row home theater here. Imagine that you've got your front left speaker here and your side surround is all the way back in this area, meaning as an object moves or a plane or train or whatever comes from that front speaker back here, there's a big gap jumping from that speaker and sound to right here. So it makes a lot of sense to have another speaker, the front wide, sitting in here. And so you could imagine when you look at some of the showcases we've done of the best theaters around the country, those tend to be high channel counts so we can fill in all of the gaps, as well as we also go full range speakers as much as we can so you're getting all of the power from all the speakers. This is why the Trinnov processors start out with 16 fully discrete channels and go up from there all the way to 64 channels. The first processor in the Trinnov line that you see here is called the Altitude 16. It ships with 16 channels of decoding. You can see here with 8 HDMI inputs, 2 outs, plenty of both audio and digital inputs, and 16 balanced audio outs, plus 2 stereo digital output channels. One really cool feature they implemented with the Altitude was a software update that now allows the 4 digital output channels to be available for a total of 20 channels. They did this software update for free. This lets you do a 9.4.6 system with just the addition of a couple of small DACs. If you're looking to take an Altitude 16 to 20 channels, talk with our team at Audio Advice and we will recommend the right DAC for you. Trinnov also recently upgraded their platform to support HDMI 2.1, and unlike just about everything else out there, you don't have to start over to get HDMI 2.1. If you already own an Altitude, you just swap out the HDMI card. This has a hardware upgrade cost, obviously, but if you want to go to 2.1, you can keep your unit and get the latest for less. These are 2 great examples of Trinnov designing their software and hardware platform to maximize your long-term investment. Now, for many home theaters, the Altitude 16 will be the ultimate processor, but for larger rooms, they have 24-channel, 32-channel, and 48-channel versions. You can expand even further with another 16 more channels that can be used for sophisticated bass management or lots of active crossovers for a total of 64 total outputs. And speaking of more channels, Trinnov recently introduced a new technology called waveforming. This, like all of their tech, comes from extensive research and development, and in this case, it's all about getting perfectly even bass response for all seats in a theater room and controlling the decay time of bass in the room. They use multiple subs on the front and rear walls of the room to virtually eliminate any standing wave problems. This has been unheard of until now, and it's mind-boggling to hear how much improved the bass is and how even it is no matter where you're sitting. Waveforming does work best with 4 to 8 subs or more, depending on the size of the room. This is where their higher channel count units really shine in larger rooms. And like all of their past software upgrades, Even though this is a true breakthrough tech, the software upgrade is free to Trinnov owners. So hopefully this has helped you better understand why Trinnov is considered the ultimate solution in the home theater world. They have proven tech that has been around for over 20 years and is not only used in the world's finest home theaters, but also in recording studios, broadcast monitoring facilities, commercial theaters, and more. The unique platform allows you to keep up with the latest immersive surround sound with free upgrades. If you're considering a Trinnov and have a local dealer, you should work with them to plot out the best speaker layout for your room, which will then help you decide how many channels you need in your Trinnov. For those of you without a local supporting dealer, our team of experts can help you with the design of your room, and our design service can even provide 3D renderings. And we can then travel to your location to perform full setup and calibration. Purchasing a Trinnov is a larger investment than your typical home theater processor, but if you look at its cost over its lifespan with free software upgrades to access the latest in decoder technology and room correction and affordable hardware upgrades when new chips are required, it is extremely appealing if you can afford it. But the real reason is the sound. We've never had a customer who upgraded to a Trinnov not be completely blown away with the improvement, even when they did not add any more speakers. The way it presents immersive audio is simply second to none. If you have any questions at all, feel free to stop by any of our award-winning showrooms or go over to audiodevice.com. We have experts who will help you out in chat or on the phone, whatever's easiest for you. Also, if you're trying to build a new theater or upgrading your own or doing a media room, go by audiodevice.com. There's a page called Home Theater Central, and it is everything from the free home theater design tool to a killer home theater gallery so you can see lots of different examples of home theaters. We have showcases of lots of theaters we've done, buyer's guides, everything that you would need home theater related. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you don't miss out on any of our latest content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.